right, we are here at the Sound of Tech to Come podcast, VeeamON 2023. It is Wednesday, the last day of VeeamON, and I'm privileged to have Danny Allan, our CTO, with me this morning as our first guest. So Danny, do you want to welcome to the show and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, Anthony, I'm so excited to be with you here today. I mean, VeeamON is the show of the year for me. I go to a lot of different conferences, but obviously this is our community, our customers, our partners. It's awesome. Yeah, so, I'm Danny Allan. I'm CTO. I run product strategy here at Veeam. I've been here for 6.5 years now. Yeah. This is my 7th VeeamON, 5 of them in person, but 2 of them virtual. Mm-hmm. But it's always the best time of the year for me. Yeah, we've been talking with a few guests that we've had on previously about how those virtual ones, I mean, they counted, but they weren't the same, obviously. So whenever I'm asking people how many VeeamONs they've been at, they actually separate the virtual with the physical, right? So, but effectively, and actually we were last here 4 years ago, weren't we? It's crazy to think it's been 4 years since we were in Miami in 2019, right? It is, and you know what? I have to say that Miami is my favorite venue. I was in Chicago, I was in New Orleans, I've been to obviously the one in Vegas last year. But Miami has a special feel about it. I don't know if it's the size of the room or the venue or the location, but this is special to me. I've always said 2019 was the best year up until this year, and this is my favorite one so far. I actually agree. Apart from the city being amazing, it's got something about it that's so different to other cities in the US, and I love the feel of it. I love all the Art Deco-ness and the Cuban influence and everything, and got in a couple of days early to soak that up. But you're right, this venue in itself is quite, it's big, but it's intimate at the same time. You never feel lost in this particular venue, the Fontainebleau Conference Centre, which is steeped in history as well, isn't it? It's a Rat Pack hotel, right? Was built for the Rat Pack, basically. This hotel goes back a long way. But the great thing is, like you say, as you walk through the hallways here, you're running into people constantly and shaking hands and seeing people. In other venues that are much larger and less intimate, to use your word, you don't have that same opportunity. And so for me, this is just more and closer interaction with the people that are attending. Yeah, and what about the general feel that you're getting compared to previous VeeamONs with this VeeamON? Just tremendous excitement. And the thing that stands out for me is in the past, it's very much been about the technology and the growth of the technology. And that's true here, but there's a new vibe around ransomware and security, and you've heard it on main stage and in all the products. And there's something about the security space and the ransomware space that is causing us to have deeper and more meaningful conversations. It's certainly driven data protection as a market to the forefront of every conversation. Yeah, I think that's actually, I had a couple of comments from people on the episodes that were released later on, obviously, but also just in general, that obviously they didn't realize there'd be such a heavy focus on ransomware. But I think what we've been able to do is bring that to the fore without going over top. I think Anand said it really well. He said marketing BS on stage. So we're okay to say that as well here, right? But I think we've definitely done it with the breadth of our data platform, the different technologies, the different products that we have, which in each of their own way act to basically be the tool set for our customers and partners to protect themselves against those cyber attacks. 100%, yeah. The Veeam data platform helps and aids and supports in that mission, cyber resilience of the organization, but we're not over the skis with marketing BS of we're a security company, because clearly we're not. We're just helping organizations be more resilient, keep their business running. Yeah, exactly. So what's been your favorite, obviously you knew the announcements, we both knew some of the announcements beforehand, but of what we've seen on the main stage with regards to specifically V12A, what's your, and we call it a minor release. Anton was very, very, he was actually really correct in saying it was a minor release all the time, but we know it's not minor, right? So what was your favorite feature, or maybe give me 2? Well, my favorite feature by far, and this is simply because I'm a security guy by nature, is the inline ransomware detection. Yeah. And as you know, it pains me a little bit to say that, because we've had security detection, malware detection for a long time with Secure Restore and using data integration APIs. You can use third-party security tools to do that analysis. And within VeeamON, we've been doing observability and looking for indicators of ransomware for a long time. But what excites me is being able to do inline ransomware detection, essentially using the data proxies as you're passing it by, because there's so many advantages to that. It reduces the CPU, the I/O of the scanning engine. You don't have to mount things and create them. And it does it for every incremental pass. You're not doing 6 petabytes of data. I was talking to a customer on Monday with 6 petabytes of data, and you don't have to do that massive analysis. That's actually probably the biggest thing now that I think about it as to what differentiates it from what we had before, which we always felt was there. We would call it
I guess you could call it MVP to a certain extent. We put it out there to see how functional it would be, but I don't think we understood the growth of data that was happening at the same time. Right? It was great for a 10 gig machine, 20 gig machine, but we know that people have petabytes and gigabytes, like huge machines these days. So when it can actually do the inline on the blocks, inline incrementals, that's the big benefit of it. But also we've got the guest indexing as well, so we actually, the way that I was talking to R&D about this, we've gone through multiple attempts, and in fact, Dmitry Popov, who's leading that charge, talked about it in the 4 ways, including the first way that we had in the previous versions. But now you've got the inline ransomware scanning that's doing it actually inline, using that. It's using some sort of compression algorithm to work out not a compression algorithm, a encryption algorithm to work out how encrypted the blocks were compared from the first pass to the second pass, based on a percentage, and it comes, this is suspect potentially, check it out. Then we've got the guest indexing, which basically, like I showed on stage yesterday, has a JSON file with a bunch of known extensions. Threshold can be, adjusted. I think that's a very big, important thing of that we're doing. Again, going on our flexibility and choice that we give to our partners and our customers, they don't have to just accept what we give them. They can tune it to make sure that they get not as many false positives. What do you think? Because you've done security, so how sort of important is worrying about false positives in this world?
Well, it's everything, because if you can't trust the technology, I always have the statement, I say technology can never reach its full potential unless people trust the technology.
Yeah.
And if you're getting false positives or false negatives,
Yes.
it has a massive impact on the willingness to adopt within the organization. So the second you start seeing false positives show up, you've lost your audience.
Absolutely.
And you can't afford to do that.
Yeah. And then the fourth one was, which we haven't really talked about, in fact we didn't talk about it, there's an API that we can extend to, which I think our technology partners can actually plug into as well to do something in that inline scanning as well, which I'm not sure if we've really talked about it too much at all, really.
No, we haven't. And that's the type of thing about a Veeam. We always, when I say we're low-key, we're certainly not over the skis, over marketing. And you see that in the data protection space, as you know. Organizations
Absolutely.
out there making claims that some are just patently false, but certainly others that are over marketing. But we're very conservative in our approach. We're very pragmatic. And you see that from our customers. They're so passionate about Veeam simply because we're pragmatic about what works, what doesn't work.
Do you sometimes think that we should be more aggressive in that? We've talked about this in the team, right? We have multiple Teams chats about when we see that behaviour out in the world, and the trailing thought is always, let's let them make the news and we can just be, a little bit, we'll let them make the noise and let them step on their own toes, basically. But do you often feel that maybe we should be a little bit more, not as passive? I won't say aggressive, not
Sure.
as passive.
Yeah. Yes and no. I mean, there is no binary black and white answer to this.
Yeah.
This is very much a cultural thing. I grew up in Canada, as you well know, and Canadians tend to be very hesitant to over-promote themselves. And so the natural side of me doesn't want to over-promote myself. However, it is true that we do amazing things, like extending APIs to third parties to do inline detection. We do inline entropy detection. Now they can add their value to it.
Yeah.
So those are the types of things that we just have to be more loud and proud about those capabilities rather than... we don't have to beat our chest, but make sure the world knows the capabilities that we have.
I always talk about it when I'm talking to customers these days and our SE team and the sales team, is just to be a little bit more on the offense.
Yes.
I think that's the way to describe it. Don't be defensive about it, be offensive about the way, like it's a basketball game, right? We won't talk about the basketball. Boston did have a good win last night, now that I come to think about it. And I reckon it's opened the door a little bit.
It has. My son texted me and said, this is the beginning of something epic.
Yeah, they definitely did. And this episode will probably come out next week, so we would have known the result by then. So let's see how we go. Just to frame it, obviously, Danny is from New Hampshire, close to Boston. I think you've got an affinity for the Boston teams in America. From Australia, but I've always followed the Miami Heat, so that's just my thing. So yeah, we've got a bit of a friendly rivalry going on today. So what about this? We mentioned, what was the second? I think I know what the second most favourite thing in V12A is, but what's your second most favourite?
You probably don't know what my second most favourite one is.
I'm taking it. I just assumed that it was the object storage one, but it is clearly not.
Don't get me wrong, I love object storage backup, and I think that's probably what everyone expected that I would jump to. But,
Yeah.
but actually my second favorite one is the SIEM, Security Incident and Event Management
Yeah.
integration, simply because I know that CISOs and organizations at the very top level, they're continually monitoring the risk factor of their organization, and clearly your data protection capabilities are a part of that. And actually, one of those minor things that we don't talk about that will
Yeah.
feed into that is the best practices guide. In version 12
Yeah.
and 12A, we continue to tell customers, hey, you're following best practices, you're not, we're seeing this, we're seeing that. But bubbling that up into the corporate organizational incident and event management system, I think, is so critical. So, and it's very much a partner ecosystem thing, but that's my second favorite thing.
Yeah, and I think that's, as we, from an enterprise point of view as well, that's very important, right, to get into that sort of space. That best practice analyzer that we have, I think, didn't get almost any sort of screen time for 12, the version 12 did it. Like, it's there, it's beautiful, it works, but I don't think, from my personal opinion, we didn't shout about it enough, right? It just kind of was released as a almost secondary sort of feature of V12, but it's beautiful in itself, isn't it?
It is. We didn't talk about it at all. Again, something extremely powerful that we needed to be more loud and proud about, but we're enhancing it again in 12A. We're adding more capabilities to it. But what's your favorite feature in 12A?
Well, you know what? I think the inline ransomware detection is definitely important. So from the level of importance, I think that one is my favorite because of what it can do, what it lets us defend against and go on the offense with regards to, when we're in a competitive situation. I like the fact that we're doing it our own way, and I think it's a very purposeful way. We're not forcing our customers and partners to go down a certain path. We're not shoving down. The fact that it's a special feature built on... We did use some of the AI and ML wording on stage, obviously, but we know that, in the background, it's an algorithm, because everything's an algorithm at the end of the day doing its thing. So that's how I like to say it. But I think that one would be, and obviously, you know that I've been pushing for some sort of object storage, backup, orchestration, whatever you want to call it, for a very long time now. Probably, I don't know, when I sent that first email to you, I still remember the email. Probably about it was 5 or so years ago, and I said, we should do this, So I think that one clearly is going to be a great opportunity for service providers to pick up, create some services around it, and just generate that data to the pub. We've talked about the data going into object storage for the last, since 9.5, right? That's when we first brought out object storage capabilities. And you've always got those great stats about how much data has gone into the public cloud. Did Anand give a updated figure on that yesterday? Or was it more of a general zettabyte sort of figure, wasn't it? It wasn't specifically what we had given into the public cloud over the last 12 months, was it?
No, it wasn't. We have mentioned in the past, in the public number here, is we sent an exabyte of data, pardon me, into the public cloud in 2023.
Yeah.
Sorry, 2022.
22.
And I expect that to continue to grow, especially because in version 12 we have direct object storage.
Yeah.
And so I expect to see that significantly grow. But we're adding, like I say, it's about 100 petabytes per month easily into the public cloud now.
And final question on the product is, where do you see object storage settling in the future?
When you say settling,
like
what do you
just
mean by
generally, like obviously the perception is public cloud, Amazon S3. That's where it's had its most time to shine from a marketing perspective, and that's what people associate with it. But clearly, there's a push for it to become primary on-premises storage, right? So, is it going to become that dominant form of storage, on premises?
I think so, 100%. What we've seen is an increase in the performance, certainly, of object storage over the last few years, and it has the benefits of infinite scalability, and it has cost advantages. But what I think and expect to happen, if you look at organizations like Scality, for example, they begin to converge file and object into a single system that exposes itself in multiple ways. And I expect in the long run that is how storage will begin to manifest itself. It's one storage system, but it is many different entry points into it.
Because in the past, what they would have represented was someone putting a header or some sort of software in front of a block file system to present it as S3. Or remember Swift? The Swift protocol?
Yes.
That's when I first started playing with it. It was quite horrible because nothing really interacted with it, but we had to keep it there. That was the first Ceph sort of implementations. But I think now it's becoming more that primary focus when they are releasing their new platforms and a new system. Okay, final question. Just give us your general roundup of VeeamON for 2023.
Well, just so exciting and exhilarating to be here. The passion of the community has not diminished at all, and I'm especially enthusiastic about that simply because we did go through COVID, and last year was a bit of a tentative, as you know, it was a bit smaller, people were hesitant, but we're back at it now. It's clear the industry is growing, it's clear there's demand around security and ransomware and the possibility of data. I was really excited by your demo, Anthony, of Spot Rover robot, simply because it talks about where this industry is going and the potential for data to change every aspect of our life.
Yeah, and actually we can now we can fill in the part that I didn't do on stage, I think, which is pretty interesting, because we definitely can have a situation where a platform like that will upload, images to an S3 bucket. We can protect that data. That's a tenuous link we're trying to make with Spot, right? When we first were working at how do we take this this robot from Boston Dynamics, which has clearly been bought by marketing to be a bit of a prop. How do we add and give it the respect that it deserves from a technology point of view, from the platform point of vieiew? So, yeah, we know that we've got customers, Edward mentioned it, who are using it to upload primary data, system data from their going on its missions, and that data needs to be backed up. So that's, I think, where we can tie it together from that point of view.
And not just protected. You think about the large language models or the LLMs that are taking those massive sets of data, those images of burning buildings or whatever it happens to be, and start applying machine learning and artificial intelligence to make them even smarter in the future. It highlights the imperative of the data protection of that as you build out those large models that have massive sets of ingest data.
Yeah, awesome. Hey, Danny, thanks for being on the show. This is VeeamON 2023, the sound of tech to come. Thank you again, Danny.
Thank you, Anthony.
Awesome. All right.